It's a patient is an 80-year-old male, complains of multiple episodes of painless gross and total hematuria for the last 2 weeks. Amorphous clots, no history of acute retention, no history of lithuria, pyuria. There's no history of flank pain or suprapubic pain, no similar history in the past, no history of TB. Is a known case of BEP on alpha blockers, known case of diabetes under medication. Past history of smoking present. He left 45 years back. Appetite and bowel habit normal.
Okay, so episodes were self-limiting or he required any medication?
The episodes were self-limiting.
Okay, and he has no history of hematuria previously. It's only since last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Is there any history of fever?
No.
Any history of flank fullness or suprapubic fullness or palpable mass?
No such history.
Any history of anticoagulants or something he's taking?
There's no such history.
Okay. Any history of anorexia, weight loss, or cough, chest pain?
There's no such history.
Any history of any recent surgical intervention?
No surgical intervention.
Okay. Any history of previous radiotherapy?
No history.
What radiotherapy? For what?
The radiotherapy to the pelvic region, if he has some history of.
For what?
For prostate carcinoma or anal carcinoma.
For prostate carcinoma. If that would have been the case, you would have been told, no? This patient had a history of prostate cancer and he's had radiotherapy. Did you ask the question on radiotherapy for that reason or for some other reason?
That means that just to rule out radiation status or if he has.
Can you get radiation-induced tumors in the bladder?
Yes, sir.
Well, they have had radiation for something else. No?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This gentleman is 80 years old. If you have had radiation for some other disease, one would anticipate that that would have been some form of a childhood tumor or rectal carcinoma or something like that. And then you have, nowadays all the treatments for rectal growths and all that are quite different. Radiation and then surgery and everything else. So it's a different ballgame altogether, no?
Yes, sir.
So while your history of radiotherapy is important, at the moment, in the present context of this presentation, it is not relevant. I mean, what do you think is happening to this man? What is your primary diagnosis?
Sir, considering his age and painless hematuria, the most probable diagnosis would be lower tract malignancy, as it is more common.
Yes, there's no doubt about it that will be the first diagnosis. Anything else you would like to consider?
Sir, I would like to consider possibility of benign enlargement of prostate with a very vascular gland.
Why do you want to make that as a diagnosis?
Sir, I am already taking alpha
blockers.
What
is the evidence for that here?
He is already taking, sir, alpha blockers for benign enlargement of
Correct, absolutely. So somebody is on drugs for BPH possibly, and the hematuria may be due to benign enlargement of the prostate. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? No other reason for hematuria? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. I could not find any other reason.
You don't want to think of renal malignancy.
Sir, as he's having amorphous clots, so there is less. Sorry, sir.
Amorphous clots is a very vague term, you know. Clot is clot, that's all. It can come from the kidney and stay in the bladder and then be passed out. Huh?
Yes, sir.
So, painless hematuria is painless hematuria. With clot, without clot. Huh?
Yes, sir.
So, irrespective of the shape of the clot, don't add significance to that when you're trying to make a differential diagnosis. You know, this guy's got hematuria which is painless, is 80 years old, and a past history of smoking. You have to consider renal malignancy also, both urothelial as well as non-urothelial malignancy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what will you do?
Sir, I would like to do.
What investigation would you like to do?
Sir, I would first do routine investigations like complete blood count, serum creatinine, routine micro, urine cytology. Yes, sir. Sorry, nothing. Investigation.
And then, sorry, cytology and then?
Cytology, sir. Before all investigations, I would like to examine the patient first.
No, forget it. Forget the examination. I'm just telling you how will it work. How will you investigate this patient?
And sir, I would like to go for contrast enhanced CT of abdomen and pelvis with delayed phase.
You don't want to do your favorite ultrasound.
Sir, if CT is not readily available, then we can do a primary ultrasound to know the exact origin of hematuria.
At the moment in this world, CT is not readily available, only on the moon.
Yes, sir.
CT scan is available everywhere, in every nook and corner it is available. So, CT scan is available.
Then, sir, I would like to go for directly for CT scan.
Yes, the current guidelines indicate that in a patient who has got gross painless hematuria, the investigation of choice is a CT scan. With contrast, provided the creatinine is normal, or you want to go some form of contrast. Cross-sectional imaging is important. Either you do MRI or do CT scan or whatever. So,
yes, sir.
that's the way to go. And not do an ultrasound.
Yes,
Okay?
sir. Yes, sir.
The CT scan is faster, more readily available. All right, and gives you the answer, because if you do an ultrasound, you still will want to do a CT scan.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, anyway, show him the CT scan. CT scan was done?
Yes.
Show the CT scan.
Are you changing the slide? It is still on history.
We are showing you the CT scan.
Sir, we are not able to see. We are just seeing the history.
Just wait.
Okay,
Just
one
wait.
second.
Many images, it takes a little time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now we get it. Next. Next. Next.
These are the images available. I'm repeating the slides.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a contrast enhanced CT scan of abdomen and pelvis. In this, bilateral kidneys appear normal in size shape, and there is no hydroureteronephrosis on any side. The urinary bladder is partially filled with thickening of the bladder wall, more at the bilateral lateral walls of the bladder, with some post-contrast enhancement of this thickening of the wall. There is also straightening of the bladder wall, lateral wall. No,
Which
sorry,
Which lateral wall?
sir, more towards the left lateral wall, but there is also thickening on the right lateral wall as well.
Okay.
There is no obvious intraluminal mass seen.
What is the thing in the bottom, the fourth cut, the third and fourth cut from the left as you face the screen?
Yes, sir.
There's something inside there. Something enhanced that appears to be within the lumen. Can you see? Cannot make out?
Now I am able to make out. Some cases.
Are you able to see the full screen?
Can you see now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am able to see, sir. But, sir, bladder is partially filled, so I cannot make out that.
So what's your diagnosis at the moment?
Sir, it could be. It appears to be bladder malignancy only, as the rest of the organs are normal. Kidney, ureter are normal. Prostate is also mildly enlarged, not much enlarged, sir. We have bladder mass.
So what is your plan now? What is your plan?
Sir, take the fitness of the patient and then would like to proceed for cystoscopy, and if mass is present, then transurethral resection.
So you will do TUR BT.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Tell him the findings of the TUR BT findings.
There were two large papillary lesions with tightly packed fronts which were found in the trigonal region. Almost the entire bladder wall was involved by many small papillary tumors, including the prostatic urethra. There were many angry-looking areas resembling CIS, and a bimanual examination revealed a hard mass which was felt over the left lobe of the prostate.
It will be a large mass on cystoscopy, and it's also whether the mass was palpable before resection and after resection on manual examination.
No, under anesthesia we had examined, then it was palpable. Bimanual examination we had done under anesthesia.
That is what I'm asking, that we do it before starting the resection and after completing the resection.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
yes. So how does it make a difference? How does it make a difference if it is palpable before and it is palpable after, and palpable before and not palpable after?
Sir, if it is palpable before and after, then it is extravesical spread is present and it is fixed probably to the other organ, and the resection is not complete.
If it is not palpable after resection? If there's a mass which is palpable before and not palpable after?
So then the reading would change, because if it is not palpable after, then we can put it into the T3 staging, clinical staging. And if it is even palpable after,
No, this is palpable before, not palpable after. Is it still T3?
if the mass is palpable on examination, there is
There's something in your mic, man. I think your mic may be touching something or what. A lot of disturbance somewhere. Have you got a collar mic or something?
no, sir. We have
Yeah, there's a lot of static coming across. So I don't know whether some wire is rubbing or something is happening there. So if it is palpable before the resection and after the resection, if it is palpable before and not palpable after the resection, how does it make a difference?
So if it is palpable before and after, then the mass has already spread to perivesical region, that is extravesical spread is present.
Okay, alright, okay. If it is not palpable afterwards,
Then probably it is muscle invasive but has not spread to the perivesical region.
so what does it infer? What stage will it be?
Sir, if it is not palpable after resection, it would be T2 disease. And if it is palpable even after resection, then it could be
Variety of T2. Which subcategory of T2?
T2B, sir.
Yes. T2B. Right. Okay. So what are you going to do now? It's still palpable after the resection.
That means the mass has already has extravesical spread, sir. We would, as there is a large mass, I don't think it would have been possible to resect it completely. So we will take a representative biopsy and a deep muscle biopsy possible, sir.
Okay. So now you tell him the biopsy report.
It was a high grade.
Read the biopsy report.
Sir, I haven't put it up, sir. In the
Oh, I
slides.
see. Okay. Read it out.
We had
Don't miss out anything. Read the whole biopsy report.
So we had taken a biopsy from a lot of areas, and in most of the areas it was a high-grade urothelial malignancy, and in one focus there was a muscle invasion. And the lymphovascular invasion was also present.
The muscle invasion was a small focus. Small focus of muscle invasion. Most of the tumor was T1G3. Some areas of fun lump.
Yes, sir.
No tumor in the prostatic urethra.
So there was lymphovascular invasion also.
Yes, there was lymphovascular invasion. I think they also mentioned lymphovascular embolus.
So, sir, based on this histopathological findings, I would counsel the patient and first go for neoadjuvant chemotherapy, followed by radical cystectomy with ileal cut.
Why do you want to give him neoadjuvant chemotherapy? Most of his tumor is T1, G3, small focus of muscle invasion.
But it was just as a representative biopsy, so there are higher chances that, and the mass is very large, and it is also fixed even after
Very
the.
large. He didn't say the mass is large, he just said mass, that's all.
Sir, he said too large mass represent.
Too large, no? So it is the only mass, that's all. It's not large.
In the trigonal region, there were 2 papillary
Two
lesions.
papillary lesions in the trigone, fronted and they
Yeah.
were all the tumors were resected completely.
Whatever was visible, we tried to resect everything.
So was this CT done before resection or after resection?
It was done after it.
Good question.
So the on the basis of radiological findings also, sir, it appears to be a muscle invasive tumor, and plus there was a focus of muscle invasion present. Sir, I would like to counsel the patient for neoadjuvant chemotherapy first.
Okay. So what is the indication for neoadjuvant chemotherapy? Everybody who is going for cystectomy is goes in for neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or you select patients for that?
As per the NCCN guidelines, T2 to T4 disease plus nodal positive disease should undergo neoadjuvant chemotherapy prior to radical cystectomy, as there are certain advantages, like if after resection it is a bit that if we want to give adjuvant chemotherapy after resection, then it would be a delay due to either patient is due to the post-operative complications, or patient is relatively frail. Pre-operatively giving neoadjuvant therapy has advantage that patient would be more likely to tolerate the chemotherapy, sir. Second advantage is, sir, there will be higher chances of negative surgical margin if we give prior neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And sir, it is a good prognostic indicator if we have negative surgical margin.
How old is the patient?
80 years, sir.
80 years. How will chemotherapy affect an 80-year-old man?
Sir, if
What are the consideration in 80-year-old man for chemotherapy?
Sir, usually the neoadjuvant chemotherapy, what is preferred is gemcitabine plus cisplatin, and
Yeah.
for cisplatin, there are certain contraindications, like if the performance status of the patient ECOG status is more than 2, or the patient's GFR is less than 60, or a patient has NYH 3, grade 3 or higher heart failure condition, grade 2 or higher audiometric hearing loss, and grade 2 or higher peripheral neuropathy. So if the patient...
Shouldn't you find that out first before advising him that he should have neoadjuvant chemotherapy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So your answer should be worded or stated differently.
Yes, sir.
You should mention that these are the indications or contraindications or some of the guidelines which will tell me, some yardsticks which will tell me as to whether this 80-year-old man is fit for neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and whether the neoadjuvant chemotherapy will cause him more trouble than actually benefit. Okay?
Yes,
You first look at that and then you decide the treatment.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't decide the treatment before looking at the individual's performance and other parameters. Huh?
Yes, sir.
So, of course, when you counsel the patient, you have to have one more factor in mind, and that is the patient's willingness to undergo chemotherapy.
Yes, sir.
You might try to convince every human being for your line of treatment. The patient may not agree. Generally speaking, chemotherapy is a bad word among some patient groups.
Yes,
They
sir.
don't like to hear the word chemotherapy. And they know from their family experience or from experience of their friends and all that this is what it is. So they will. So you have to discuss with them and then decide. Suppose
Yes.
this patient did not want chemotherapy, which he said I don't want chemotherapy. What is your option?
Then we would ask the patient, sir, whether he is willing for radical cystectomy or not. That also we need to ask. Uh, so if he is willing for radical cystectomy, then better
What are the issues for radical cystectomy in 80-year-old man?
Sir, issues will be same, sir. Patient's performance status we have to see. Patient's renal status we have to see, sir. And whether he is fit for general anesthesia and prolonged surgery, sir.
What is the best yardstick that is used to determine that criteria in patients who are posted for such major surgery? Which yardstick will you use? Which is supposed to be the most preferred one in many situations?
ASA grading, sir.
ASA grading is anesthesia grading.
Yes, sir.
If the patient can open his mouth, they will put a tube.
PCOG status, sir.
PCOG is just one yardstick. It's just one performance. Can you do this? Can you get up? Can you go down? Here, that, all that. Can you breathe? Can you talk? All that. PCOG. What is more important? We are talking of radical cystectomy, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. The most morbid operation in urology is the radical cystectomy. So the preferred score, the preferred yardstick is the Charlson Comorbidity Index.
Yes,
It's a little elaborate, but it's worthwhile. So in the next class, somebody will present the Charlson Comorbidity Index. All right. We all know ECOG status, Karnofsky, WHO performance, all that is there.
Yes, sir.
See, these are just telling you, yes, that fellow can climb the steps, he can look after himself, he can bathe himself, he's not breathing, he's comfortable at rest or he's panting at rest. But this is a little bit more elaborate, alright? And many people are using that when they are looking at major surgery, where there is a lot of morbidity, so they want to look at that score. And we look at all the top articles which are talking about radical cystectomy in older people, this is the yardstick that is used. So next class, Dr. Soumi will tell us about the Charlson score. Okay?
Yes.
So he does not want surgery. I'm 80 years old. What do you want to do with me?
Then, sir, we can go for bladder preservation.
What do you do?
Sir, we will go again and try to resect as much as possible. And then, sir, again, post-operatively, we would counsel him for chemoradiation.
He doesn't want chemotherapy. He doesn't want radiation also. It's very different. So how will you manage it? How can you manage this man with this biopsy report, where he does not want chemotherapy, he does not want radiation therapy, and he does not want radical cystectomy? Difficult proposition, isn't it? How will you manage it?
Yes, sir. So we can do as much as possible complete TUR resection. And
No,
then
one easy way, I'll tell you, one easy way, if such a patient comes, one easy way is you refer him to somebody else. You are not following my line of treatment. It's difficult for me to follow your line of approach. So find somebody else who will dance to your tune.
yes,
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Somebody else. Somebody else may have a different opinion how to treat him. That you draw the line there. You're not bound to duty to treat everybody that comes to see. You just tell him this is what I would do. And if he's not willing to listen to your line of treatment, you tell him, man, that's all I can do. You find somebody else. You're at full liberty to do that.
Yes, sir.
But he doesn't know. He wants some treatment. You can't. He's bleeding, no? So what else can you offer him? How will you approach this gentleman who is not willing to go to somebody else, who does not want these major lines of treatment, but he still got this tumor? Can you think of a way out of the box? It may not be according to the so-called guidelines. You have to think out of the box. How will you manage this guy?
TUR monotherapy will.
Okay, TUR monotherapy. Then what will you do? This was the biopsy report. You read the biopsy report again. High grade T1G3. Some areas of pulmonary. Lymphovascular invasion. One area focus of muscle invasion. One area focus. In this entire bladder resection, there was only one area of focus. What is the other way of treating this gentleman? You were telling something. Dr. Vishwarup has asked you a question. You said something earlier, but you did not elaborate, or you just left it in the wind.
Complete TUR resection.
Complete TUR resection. Okay, then what do you do? See, the patient is sitting with you. This is the preliminary biopsy report. You have discussed the treatment options. He has said no to every one of those treatments, but he still wants you to treat him.
If there is only a small focus of muscle invasion, then we can try intravesical BCG or chemotherapy.
What will you do now? How will you approach this problem? Small focus of muscle invasion is there.
So if patient denies any other form of treatment, we can give intravesical BCG.
No. Will you do that straight away?
No, sir. After complete TUR resection.
Complete TUR resection means what?
What is complete resection?
Sir, we have already done once TUR. Then we will again take the patient for cystoscopy, and whatever visible mass we will again resect. Re-TURBT.
Re-TURBT is different. Completion TURBT is different.
Sir, completion TURBT is when we have not resected the entire mass in the first TURBT.
You must be very clear. What Dr. Vishwarup is asking you is that there are two different things. Re-TURBT, completion TURBT.
Yes, sir.
In completion TURBT, listen to me, in completion TURBT, when you leave the operating theatre, you know that you still have got tumor inside the bladder and that you will come back again to resect it. Irrespective of the biopsy, patient may have anesthesia may have faded away, patient may have jerked, he may have had a perforation, patient may have had some cardiac event in the theatre, you left the tumor inside.
Yes.
And then you go back in later to complete the TURBT, right? That is completion TURBT. Re-TURBT is a different ballgame. Re-TURBT, you have resected all visible tumor, The biopsy report has come back as T1G3. You are not very certain that there is evidence of muscle invasion. So you go back in and do a re-TURBT. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So here, when a situation like this is there, where you have resected everything and you find that there is a small focus of muscle invasion, the patient does not want chemotherapy, radiotherapy, cystectomy, what will you do?
But sir, the CT post URBT shows there is some residual.
Arey Baba, whatever is showing, it is showing. What is that? So what do you do? This is post resection CT scan.
Yes, sir.
Is it fallacious?
Could be.
Is it fallacious? Post resection CT scan, is it fallacious or not?
Yes, sir. There is possibility of fallacious findings because of the TURBT.
Why is it done? Then why is post resection CT scan done? Why is it done? What is the advantage then if it is fallacious? What is the advantage of a post resection CT scan?
To identify the nodal meds.
Yeah, that is the only reason. Post CT scan, post resection CT scan is done when you already have established evidence of muscle invasion and you are doing the CT scan to look for either nodal disease or metastatic disease in the liver, higher up, anywhere else. It is not for making a primary assessment of the bladder tumor.
Yes, sir.
Right? So that's most important. So this was a CT scan that was done after the resection, isn't it?
Yes.
So now you know that it's fallacious. So what do you do now? You will now do re-TURBT. If he does not want any of your treatments, you will now do re-TURBT because you have only one small focus of tumor. All the others are T1, G3 and Panla. So you go back and resect those areas where you thought that there was muscle invasion, but only one focus kept. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So you go back and resect all those areas and then see whether there is still evidence of muscle invasion or no. Two possibilities exist. That further resection does not show any further muscle invasion.
Yes,
It
sir.
shows some areas which were not tumor, just reaction. And that would be a biopsy report. If it shows no tumor, then obviously this was what stage? If it shows no tumor, but what stage was this then?
Would be a sir T2A that only a small focus.
Yes, that's all. So you have resected tumor initially. There's no more visible or histological proof of tumor. There's nothing else inside the bladder, only T1, G3. So this man, on the basis of that original T1, G3 report, because he had multiple tumors, can be a candidate for intravesical BCG or anything else.
Yes,
That's one way of approaching the problem. It's treatment out of the box, but you're still using guideline principles. That is T1, G3, BCG, high grade. No evidence of muscle disease. That's what you do. When you do a re-TURBT for patients, no evidence, you go ahead and treat him. Because he's not averse to intravesical chemotherapy. He's there. If he was averse to intravesical chemotherapy also, or you yourself felt that because of his age and bladder capacity that intravesical BCG may be more toxic, what will you do? What will you do in that situation?
So we can give other chemotherapeutic agents.
Yes. What will you use? What can you use?
So we can use gemcitabine
No,
or
can you use gemcitabine? Can you use mitomycin?
yes, sir.
So there are other agents which are less toxic than BCG and non-inferior to BCG. Gemcitabine to be useful. So you can give gemcitabine to these patients and see whether there is a response. So there are alternative ways by which a man who is not willing, who's also got age against him, who you know is not a fit candidate for many surgical procedures, and then he does not himself want to have all these treatment, you can still treat him by thinking out of the box. All right, thinking out of the box, but using the same guiding principles. All right, it's not guidelines are guidelines. General public. Individual cases may have to be tweaked a bit. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the morbidity of cystectomy in an 80-year-old man?
Uh,
What is the morbidity of cystectomy in an 80-year-old man?
so depending on patient's comorbidities,
You wouldn't like to do cystectomy for a man who has significant comorbidities, isn't it? But if he has reasonable evidence of withstanding an operation, is it allowed? Is it possible? What is the outcome? What is the advantage? What is the survival advantage? Those are issues that you need to discuss. We have discussed this before in TEM class, maybe a year or two ago, about cystectomy in octogenarians.
yes, sir. Recently only, about 6 months.
Yes. So that's why I'm asking you. This is what we discussed. So those, what you have discussed recently must come back into your mind and use that data which is there to support or refute the treatment of radical cystectomy for an 80-year-old man.
Yes, sir.
We are not looking at significant survival advantage, all right, at this point.
Yes, sir.
All right, we are looking at improving quality of life. So, will this man withstand the operation? Will he get out of the hospital? Will there be intraoperative difficulties? All those issues will have to be looked at. So, it's important that you understand these issues when you make decisions in 80-year-old people who have got bladder tumors. And now the current situation is that we will be seeing people who are 80 years old. The new old age has been claimed to be 80.
Yes, sir.
The new old age is supposed to be 80. And we are seeing people right now who are living at 80. And we know that as age advances, malignancy is more likely. Cells will age and cells will mutate and they will fight against each other. The body is age 80, but inside is still. So it is important that we understand these facets and decide what is the most appropriate treatment for our patients. In the next 5 to 10 years, we will definitely be having nephrectomies, cystectomies for people easily above the age of 75 who are fit. And we may have to change our track, change the way we manage our patients. There could be a new normal.
Yes, sir.
So, you're asking about Ramachandran. You spoke to him. He's got some ideas. His children are here. He's got ideas. Actually, this is technical. He's got bowel sounds. You spoke to his daughters? Right. No. One doctor is a metabolic medicine. The USA girl is legit. It's only 3 days per. Bowel sounds have started to come. You got some distraction. Or let's wait for some. Right, okay. Some new number here. Huh? Hello?
Yes, sir. Hello. Yes.
So I was telling you that you're going to have a new normal soon.
Yes.
Just 1 minute. Yes, hello? Yes. It depends. Depends on Omicron. Right. Okay. See you. So you have to be sure that you are able to look at people at this age and offer the appropriate treatment. Not everybody will be fit, but those who are fit, they have to be, because bladder tumor is a very bad disease.
Yes, sir.
So you may be landed up with just doing resections on these tumors, preserving their bladders,
Yes, sir.
taking care of the hematuria. The hematuria is due to new development of tumors. So you resect that and leave the bladder, resect that and leave the bladder. Alright? The bladder will become smaller, they will have frequency. What to do? They're not fit, as they grow older, you're not fit for cystectomy, it's too difficult. So you keep this. If your bladder becomes small, so small and painful, that's a different matter. But if your bladder becomes small and is not painful, but you're just having frequency, there you can wear a diaper, you can put a catheter, you put a condom, whatever it is. Those are issues. The problem arises when you have pain in your blood.
Yes.
And you don't have tumor in the blood. If you have tumor in the blood and there is pain, then you can give palliative care and let it go.
Yes, sir.
Do all this epidural, pain killing, morphine, EPA, all that. Treat like it is. So these are issues that will have to be faced by all of us when we are looking at patients now. So
Yes, sir.
go back and look at that article on cystectomy in October. Don't look at one article, look at all the articles which are there.
Sir, I just want to ask, if the re-TURBT also shows muscle invasion, then can we give intravesical chemotherapy?
No, it won't work.
Okay.
It won't work. I mean, you can't give intravesical chemotherapy. You will have to give other alternatives. But if he does not want any treatment, leave it like that. That's all. What to do? He's still got tumor. He'll come back again. The tumor will grow.
Yes.
It will advance into the pelvis. He will have significant morbidity. He will have pain. He will have hematuria, and he is willing to buy that. You tell him that. If he is willing to understand that, fine.
Okay.
As if he lives long enough, this is what will happen. If he gets metastatic disease before that, in the lungs and anywhere else, he may snuff it before.
Yes.
So this is a bad disease. It's a very bad disease.
Okay.
Okay, so next week, Charlson comorbidity, and if you want to revise cystectomy in older people, look at some of the newer articles. Don't look at some old articles.
Yes, sir.
Alright, look at some newer articles, newer guidelines on cystectomy, and we'll have a brief presentation on that.
Okay.
Okay? Right.
Thank you, sir.